Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hard 100, a video series documenting the culling of my collection from what it is to what it's going to be, and that is a Hard 100 games. I made a video a long time ago putting the kibosh on the greatest horror movies of all time. And at number 2, I put the wonderful, infinitely rewatchable Jaws. Now, this movie is something that I've always loved, and it's where my fear of sharks, along with a weird Guinness Book of World Records most dangerous sea creatures picture in a book when I was a kid, have fueled my fear of the ocean. I don't just fear sharks, ladies and gentlemen. I fear any fish bigger than me. And most fish smaller than me. Any fish like dog-sized or not just any fish. Recently, I played a couple of hidden movement games, and I thought to myself, I go, Self, wouldn't it be funny if, someone made a Sharky, Jawsy kind of hidden movement game where you're trying to hunt the shark? Wouldn't that be super cool? Yeah, that would be super cool. Someone should make that. You want to make that? I should make that. And then, almost as if I willed it into existence, less than a week later, Jaws was announced. A hidden movement game where you're hunting the shark, and I have often railed on some companies about trying to be a certain kind of game without being that kind of game. And the license can go a long way into determining whether or not you're going to give the game a chance or just piece it on by. So ladies and gentlemen, get your adequately sized boats, your banana floats in the water, and get away from the goddamn beach, you monsters! Because today, we are talking about Jaws. Alright, Jaws, a game of strategy and suspense by Prospero Hall and Ravensburger. Oh, what's going on the other side? Which you and some friends try to recreate the wonderful movie of Jaws in 2 very different acts. What we have here is Act 1, which is a hidden movement game. And over here on the other side, we have Act 2, which is kind of a bluffing style game thing. So what we have really is you can either play as the humans or the shark, the Quints and the Coopers and the Wunts, or the Brucey Jaws. And that gentleman is meow right there. You can either play as the humans or Jaws. And these are 2 different acts. So there are human shark and then human shark, 2 very different games that are on their own. Together, they are a lot better. And when you sit and think about it, let me see. If my calculations are correct, there are a possibility of 1,324 different combinations in this game that you can make by combining the different humans and sharks and everything else. So I could be the human, and you could be the shark, and then you could be the human, and I can be the shark. That number seems a little high. At the end of the day, however, what this game is essentially is 4 games in 1. And I'm going to break this down on each act and what each person is doing and see if it's something that you might enjoy or something that I might want to keep. First up, let's talk about them humans. What them humans are trying to do in the first act is they are trying to actually find the shark. So we're trying to find this shark down here. Let's see what's in store for us. All right, so here is Amity Island. We have Brody, Hooper, and Quint. Spanish ladies. So he's out here searching around. What Quint's job is, his job is to go around and try to launch these barrels into different sectors to see if that's the shark there, because the shark needs only 2 barrels and then this round is over. And depending on how quickly that happens will depend on how much better the humans are in the second round. Hooper is actually going to be running around trying to pick up these barrels to take them to the dock so the boats can pick them up and then pass them on to each other so they can launch them into the shark. Fantastic. And then over here, Brody is the last person. He gets to move swimmers around. We are constantly adding these swimmers to the game because at the beginning of every turn, we flip this over. Shark alert! We add 2 swimmers in the north, 1 in the west, and if the shark swimmer, blah, 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 you get to do other things. And all of these are very thematic, and they're all versions of the movie. And as far as I can tell, they have this weird kind of villainous thing where it's the picture, but they kind of slightly painted over it. So that's cool. So you're adding those sharks, and Brody and Hooper, their responsibility is to run around and try to save these swimmers from Death Shark. We'll talk about Death Shark in a second. Brody can do things like closing beaches, so if you had a swimmer, it goes away. Hooper can do things like pick up barrels anywhere, rescue swimmers. He can also use the fish finder, which is not that thing, which is this thing, to see if the shark is there. But Quint's main primary responsibility is to launch barrels into adjacent spaces. Whenever the shark is there, boom, it's a hit. When he's not there, he just kind of floats as a sort of motion detector of the shark, and then he'll tell you if he moved it. And once you have attached 2 barrels to the shark, that part of the game is over. And then we go on to the second act as the humans. Fuck all that. Here is what the shark is doing in Act 1, and this is way more fun. So the shark actually gets to take a whole bunch of people around and eat them. So you get to welcome to the shark side of things, ladies and gentlemen. We have our hidden movement tracker, we have our 4 sexy special abilities, and we have our focus here. This is what we got to do to trigger the end of our round. We got to eat all them swimmers. Delicious. But anytime they attach a barrel to us, not so good. So as this goes up, it's going to prepare us for the second round. We'll talk about that in a second. On your turn, you can also use one of your shark abilities. Now, the other person knows what these abilities are, but they don't know what they are, which means they know what all 4 of these, but if I say I use this one, they don't know what that one is. But we know. These will do various things like eating multiple swimmers, moving faster, not triggering any sensors, out of sight, just all kinds of things. And anytime they do find us, we do have to pop up and show that that is in fact where we are. But most of the game is going to revolve around this. Here, let's get rid of that, is our hidden movement sheet. So it shows where we start, it shows where we end, it shows if we eat swimmers, and it shows how many swimmers and the power tokens that we've eaten. So it's very easy to keep track of all this stuff, which is very, very nice. And in typical hidden movement game fashion, here is a layout of the actual thing itself, so you're not all, which is awesome. So after you have eaten all 9 of your dudes, or getting hit by 2 barrels, Act 1 is over, and then we flip it to Act 2, and this is where the other game begins. But, ladies and gentlemen, alright, so Act 1 is over. Depending on how well we did will depend on kind of how we're going to run things, but this is not the end for us, because the first act is geared towards the shark, but the second act is geared towards us. Let me show you how. So we had the Quints, we had Act 1, we flipped them all over to Act 2. Everyone has the same amount of health, and everyone gets sexy new gear that was not available in Act 1. This is how you're going to actually hurt the shark. You're also going to get some additional crew cards based on how well the shark did in the first round, and then you can distribute these as you like. So what's going to happen here is after the shark has done the sharky business, we're going to place our tokens where we think the shark might be, but also maybe not where the shark is, but close enough to where we can hit the shark if it does surface under us. Then that's how we're able to roll and damage the damn thing. But things could happen. Once he hits our boat, he could possibly attack it as well by rolling dice and getting hits, and then our boat is going to start to sink. It's going to start to go, and then what if we're in a spot where our boat is, then, oh no, our little dudes end up in the water, and then Sharky, and then smile, you son of a bitch, because, that's most likely what might end up happening. Alright, all that shit from the first game, gone. We don't have to worry about it anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what we're doing is we are going to go shark side. Alright, so now we are on the sharky side of things, and now we have health. So we start up here at 0, and then if we get all the way down to this, we die. But that's probably not going to happen. We have all kinds of fun things that we get to do as the shark. So first things first, this thing, gone. Don't need it. All these cards from the first thing, gone. Don't need it. I don't know why I'm telling you this now. Because we did so well in the first round, we get access to shark abilities. These are the cards. You're not going to get any more of these, but these have devastating things. Like, let's say, for example, the shark damages and destroys a boat. Each crew member on the boat takes a wound because we're trying to eat them now. And you get to draw a certain number of these depending on how well you did in Act 1. But also how well you did in Act 1 depends on how many of the crew cards they get. Now, they get a certain number. They've already talked about that, but we may give them extra ones. So what we are going to do, boom, first off, we have 3 of these things. Let me show you. So we flip these over. Our 3 places on where we could possibly go. At that point, we take our tokens and we put them on to show where this is. So C, for example, is right here. So that's where the C goes. That's nice. And then we take our two-sided tokens that shows where we're going to be. We secretly pick one and we go, that's where we're going to be. I wonder if that's where you're going to be. And when these fucking jabronis are out here trying to figure out where I'm going to be to pop up based on where this is, I flip it. And that's where I am! And then I do this. And then I roll the dice. And it causes damage possibly. And it hurts them. And it's wonderful. Hooper, you idiot! Starboard! Ain't you watching it? I don't know why Quinn's Scottish all of a sudden. So that is your Jaws. Playing as the human player in Act 1 is fine. Playing as human in Act 2 is fine. Playing as the shark in Act 1 is hella fun. And playing as a shark in Act 2 is fine. But I do want to talk a little bit about movie licensing in games. And this, I believe, is another time when we have to go down to the sack. Whoop, bam! Sack time! All right, so here we have a situation where if this was any other shark game, I don't think I would care, but specifically because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, I all of a sudden pique a bit of interest. Now, it does a decent job of replicating what the movie does, but whenever there is a game that tries to be a license that it doesn't have, i.e. Nemesis, then you lose something. Because whenever something is trying to pretend to be something else, it doesn't quite live up to the hype. But when something is something else, in the case of Jaws, you do get that extra benefit of it being a licensed game. Now, I come from a generation where licensed games are done by LJN and they are garbage. But things have changed recently. Now, there are two types of licensed game. There are your, what I'm going to call cryptozoic games, where you take any idea and just slap a theme on it. It's more of a setting than a theme. So it's a deck builder featuring, oh, Scott Pilgrim, oh, DC, oh, these people, oh, this, look at all of these different licensed properties that we can throw this weird, basic deck building thing on. And I just don't really like that. I understand why they do it because it's a good cash grab. Like, why would I want to play a generic deck building game when I could take a deck building game and play it in a world of Rick and Morty, for example? But then you have the games that are from the ground up designed around a license, like our good friend Jaws. This could not be any other game other than a Jaws game. You could retheme it possibly to generic shark, but the abilities and the cards and the orca and the way that everything is done, the theme and the license and the game are all one. So this game is not a setting. This is themed. And I think there's a very distinct difference between the two that publishers need to start taking note of, that, oh, I don't have a DC Comics theme, I just have a DC Comics setting, but I'm doing nothing with it other than using the characters and maybe making one decent reference every now and again. But this game really excels at the theme of Jaws. Let's do some housekeeping. Boom. Housekeeping. Jaws is for 2 to 4 players. I only played this 2-player where one person was the human, other person was a shark, and I don't feel like there's so much to give all the human players to do to warrant that many players. Ages 12 and up. The movie is, if I'm not wrong, rated PG? It is. This is rated PG. This is 12 and up. So, I don't know how this is rated PG. Just, it's terrifying. And for 60 minutes. The 60 minutes is split between the two phases. So we have phase 1 or Act 1 and then Act 2. And it's not bad. So whenever I think about how this game makes me feel, it makes me feel like all I want to do is go back on that shelf and just watch Jaws. Because this game may give me a fleeting kind of, oh, I remember, but where Jaws the movie, I believe, is infinitely rewatchable, Jaws the game is a one-and-done experience. I feel like I got everything I needed out of the game. There wasn't anything special. I love the hidden movement Act 1. I think it is phenomenal. I think the cat and mouse between the humans and the sharks, and the human laying down those barrels as kind of motion detectors and the shark trying to weave in and out of them. It's great. I would have rather them would flesh that out, let me play that for 60 minutes, than to do that and then flip it over to the other side. So recently I did a death match that included 2 hidden movement games. We had the Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space, which, as we just talked about, is a setting using an alien style setting. And the other one was the Whitehall Mystery. Now, I loved Whitehall Mystery. I thought it was great for a smaller player count, and it gave me a really good social deduction experience. If that social deduction experience would have been set in a Jaws universe, using a Jaws theme, or even, honestly, a Jaws setting, I probably would have kept this over that. But, as it stands, I'm only enjoying 25% of the game. I love playing as the shark in Act 1. I don't like playing as the humans in Act 1, I don't like playing as the humans in Act 2, and I don't like playing as the shark in Act 2. I feel like they're 2 very disjointed games, but I love, you give me a social deduction game that is just the shark version of things in this, and just extend that and flesh that out, yeah, it's a keeper. But right now, this does something very similar to another game that you can see in this shot that I played only Act 1 of, and I would much rather, where is it? I would much rather play this and get a really meaty experience that I'm looking for than to play this in a sort of watered down mockbuster version of Jaws. Especially when, if I want to take care of a lighter affair, I have Whitehall Mystery. But if I want something heavier with multiple parts and me thinking in 2 different kind of game styles, the hidden movement game is right there. This one is not really for me. But it was for one play. So if you go to a board game cafe or a friend who has it, sit down, play it, make sure you get the shark, because that is the best way to play. Now, I love this movie. This game, one and done. Out of my hard 100. It was kind of a tough decision because I hem and hawed back and forth because I love the movie. And I like 25% of the game. But 25% in any arena is failure. This is a fine game. If you are new to the hobby, this is available at Target. It's a really great example, however, of a license done right. It's just the best game they could have made with the license. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be a game. I think the NES taught us that as well. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the latest edition of the Hard 100. That is not right for my shelf. It might be right for yours if you're looking for something a little lighter and a little appetizer-y as you whet the palate for your other hidden movement games. And yeah, that's about it. So peace be with you, you beautiful, beautiful people. Far and away, ye fair Spanish ladies. Far and away, you ladies of Spain.